I call the Honourable Member Materia Ture. Tēnā koe. Kei te whihia koe.
Tēnā pai, Mr. Speaker. Tēnā koe. Gambling is not just the scourge of my communities, but we all know that there are teachers, there are lawyers, and there are even politicians who gamble. So let us not say that this is a problem defined to one area, but across the country. It is also personal because I have had numerous constituents who come into my electorate office in Onehunga and Mauna Kea, and I have seen the broken relationships. I have seen kids who have gone without the essentials, the broken families, the broken relationships. It affects our communities right across this country. So said Peseta Sam Lotuinga last night in this House, and I agree with him. I agree with him 100%, and so do thousands of New Zealanders. So my plea to all of my parliamentary colleagues today is do not vote for this bill. Today we have a rare opportunity to vote with our conscience on a bill that we all know grates so deeply, and it grates because it is wrong. It is wrong to sell the law to Sky City, so they, and no one else, can make millions of dollars off the misery of problem gamblers, their families, their children, and their communities. It is wrong to use the authority of this House to excuse Sky City for 35 years from the Gambling Act, the act that constrains the harm of gambling by stemming its growth. It is wrong to know that increasing gambling at Sky City will produce measurable, predictable harm to people who can least afford to be harmed, but to choose to do so anyway. It is wrong to subvert the very foundation of our law, the law that says we are all equal before it, to confer on Sky City special privilege that the rest of us simply do not have. That is wrong, and there is no more simple way to put it. People's lives have been destroyed by gambling and by Sky City. Every few months we hear another story about another business that's gone under, about people who've become sick, their lives destroyed, who've stolen from their employers, have harmed or abandoned their children, and have even harmed themselves because of that place. So please, don't use this one vote you have today to make Sky City bigger and more rapacious and more damaging than it is already. We all have the power today to stop that from happening. And I would add, sir, a concern about the nature of Sky City. Today, in fact, just a few moments ago, I saw a press release, press report on Sky City, and a comment that they have made where they are in effect threatening MPs today that if MPs choose to deny this legislation and vote it down, that they will take their money, hundreds of millions of dollars, says Nigel Morrison, and spend it overseas. So they are effectively attempting to threaten MPs, good riddance, I agree, Mr Mallard, but threaten MPs by saying that they will remove their business and take it elsewhere in a deliberate attempt to use their financial power to influence the votes of members of Parliament. We are seeing that happen right as we speak today with this release from Sky City. John Key would have us all believe that these gambling extensions the fact that they breached the law, and despite the demonstrable harm that they bring, that these extensions are necessary for Auckland to get ahead on jobs. Well, of course, Auckland, as we know, is much, much better than that. Aucklanders are creative and innovative, imaginative, and they are better than this dirty deal of expanding a casino and placing a casino monument plonked right in the middle of their beautiful city. The other fallacy that John Key and Stephen Joyce would have us believe is that that jobs should come at any cost. But that is just simply not true. Not only are the numbers false, there aren't those numbers of jobs that they say. And if you look at any of the reports, it's clear that they're overestimating the jobs. But jobs do not come at any cost, and they most certainly must not come at the cost of 6,500 children who Joyce's own officials warn will be harmed by this bill. 6,500 children who the officials say will be at risk of not being fed and clothed properly as a result of this bill. Now, this is not my information. I didn't produce this information. This is information that is in the government's own, albeit heavily edited and carefully redacted, selectively released documents. But it is information that they have produced and have known about. The jobs claim of Stephen Joyce is untrue. One need only look at the reports to show that that's the case. Even the $90 million claim that is being made by Stephen Joyce is untrue. MED reports, their analysis shows that 72% of that money will go to Sky City through the hotel and through the convention centre. And so very little of that $90 million is going anywhere near outside the Sky City boundaries. Stephen Joyce and John Key say that because we can't know for sure exactly how many people are to be harmed or how they will be harmed by the increased gambling that this bill brings, then the risk to those people or the risk of that harm is somehow irrelevant. Joyce claimed yesterday in the regulatory impact statement that the statement says putting a precise cost on the potential increase is difficult. Well, yes, it does say that. But it also goes on to say why it is difficult to put a precise cost on the harms. It says reportedly only a fraction of those who are affected by problem gambling seek help. And the cost of the intervention services is in any case only a fraction of the costs of the harms associated with problem gambling. Those harms, such as suicide, family violence, children inadequately clothed and fed, and other examples of deprivation and poor parenting, costs to the justice system, to business, to community groups of gambling-related crime, lost productivity, etc. That is what it says in the RAS, where all of those harms are identified as being real and the risk of those harms being real. And yes, it is difficult to quantify the cost. That doesn't mean those harms do not exist. It doesn't mean those harms are irrelevant to this debate. And in fact, it raises serious questions when this bill is proceeding, knowing that those harms are a risk, and when Mr. Joyce today confirmed that he has made no attempt to find the real evidence behind that. No, he did not seek any advice about whether more children would be left in cars in the Sky City car park, even though we know that that happens. No, he hasn't assessed the risk of increased fraud for those businesses that we know will suffer from theft and fraud as a result of problem gambling, usually by people who own or are senior in those businesses. No, he hasn't sought any advice on the risk to charities that not only receive funding from the members of the public, but receive funding from government and as to the risk of that money being stolen, when we know that more than 50% of the money that is stolen from charities is stolen to fuel problem gambling. These are the facts that we know. This is the information we have available to us. But John Key and Stephen Joyce have deliberately refused to investigate that information, because if they don't know, then they can pretend it doesn't exist. And yet that harm will be experienced by thousands of New Zealanders, and more importantly by thousands of their children. I'm going to end by quoting a member of this House who fought against the 1997 Casino Moratorium Amendment Bill 15 years ago. He said, We are talking about a problem that we all own. We cannot just sweep the problem under the carpet because we believe in free enterprise. We cannot just sweep the problem under the carpet because we think it is an individual's right to throw a dice or to play blackjack. We have a problem in this country, and it is the addiction of gambling. It creates havoc amongst families, be they Māori, be they Pākehā. It creates a problem, and we need a parliament with the strength and courage to face up to that problem, and face up to it we will. We have a problem, and those people who vote in favour of this bill are on the side of the angels, and those who vote against the moratorium bill are on the side of evil. Thank you, Mr Tauhinari, for those wise words.
I call the Honourable Member Besetha Sam Lotu Ainga.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Talofa lava.
Talofa lava. And I want to acknowledge the Minister, Stephen Joyce, for bringing this bill